Because people, you know how it is, people think you're crazy. And they can't believe it anyway. But there's somebody out there that needs to hear what I have to say today. This was back in the 1970s. I was approximately 3 years of age. Just a little kid doing little kid things, running around the house. So I took off running this particular day. My mother was in cooking on the stove and went to the bathroom. I took off running. I went through the kitchen like I did every day, ran down through the hall, down through the kitchen, went to hit the door to go out, and unbeknownst to me, my dad had put a lock on the door the night before, one of those clip over type locks. So when he clipped over, I ran through the door like I did, and I hit the door. When I did, my arms went through it. It's something I'll never forget. First thing I did, like every little kid, I hollered, "Mom!" Next thing you know, she's in the bathroom. She said, "Honey, you'll have to come to me. I can't come in there." So the first thing I did, being a 3-year-old little kid with that kind of mindset, I figured if I could pull my arms out really fast, it wouldn't have time to cut me. I know, pretty crazy, but that's how kids think. So I yanked my arms out. When I did, I got the arteries on my left wrist straight up and down. I got the arteries on this wrist crossways. Got my hands, my thumbs. Just a lot of damage was done. And the one that was severed perpendicular up and down was the worst. At which time blood starts shooting out of my body, that with pressure that I can't describe. If you've ever unfortunately had to witness something of that nature, you know what I'm talking about. I sprayed the house with blood because immediately I took off running. My heart's racing 100 miles an hour. And I'm spraying blood all over the walls, the ceilings, just everywhere, because I was holding my hands straight out in front of me at the time. My mother hears me screaming. She comes running out, and she's seen what I had done. And her first inclination was to grab a few towels and try to stop the bleeding. But keep in mind, I had a lot of glass in my arms. So and this is per mine and her conversation, she had grabbed my arms and wrapped a towel around both my wrists and tried to use her thumbs to close the holes in my wrist, at which time, like I said, I still had glass in there, so I screamed even more. She didn't have a car, and we lived in a rural part of town that was a good distance away from any hospital whatsoever. And she grabbed me, wrapped my arms up, ran out in front of a gentleman, and this is just how things seem to work. This gentleman was driving himself home, and he had had heart surgery, I believe 2 days prior, maybe 3 days prior. He was driving home kind of slow. He was taking it easy. My mother runs right in front of his car. He had to slam on his brakes to stop, at which time she runs, jumps in the passenger side, and she screams, "Take me to the hospital." This gentleman later had stated he was trying to keep cool because he had just went through heart surgery. He drove me to the police substation, and the substation was approximately 5 to 6 miles from our house. When we arrived at the police substation, someone had notified the hospital we were on our way. And the policeman drove fast to get me down there. And he had a good distance to travel because where we lived in the rural part of town, they had to take me to the downtown hospital. At which time when we got there, my mother stated right before we had gotten out of the car that I had turned sheet white and my lips were purple and I was about out. And I can remember it being so weak I couldn't hardly stay awake. And I just looked at her and I said, "I love you, Mommy." And at which time I was in and out of consciousness. Just, it's a hard thing to explain. The policeman grabbed me and he took me into the hospital. And at which time, when we entered the hospital, the lights blinded me to where I squeezed my eyes as tight as I could get them squeezed. And the next thing I know, I'm in a room, I'm laying on a table, stainless steel table, and my arms are stretched out on both sides of me. And there's a gentleman there. And he's wearing bluish green scrubs, like any hospital nurse or doctor would be at that time. And he looks over at me with this look of peace, just ultimate peace, a reassurance kind of look. And at which time I am in no more pain. I don't feel anything. My eyes are focused on this gentleman. And this gentleman took 3 steps to approach me. And when he got within, I'd say maybe 5 or 6 feet of me, it was like his energy was so overwhelming. His energy went around me, almost like an energy hug, if you can picture that. This big energy coming around me. At which time, I had never felt so much love, so much compassion, so much caring, kindness, everything that was just 1,000 times magnified of what I had ever encountered from my parents. It was just amazing. And he spoke to me without ever opening his mouth. And communicated, me and him both communicated back and forth almost telepathically, I guess would be the proper word for it. He told me to be still and don't say a word. And at which time I did. Now, looking back on it, it was a command. I couldn't after he had said that. But I still had my own free will to do so. And I just didn't. So it was different. And he told me, the closer he got, he said, I'm going to make you fly like an eagle. I guess me being a kid, he was trying to figure out something. And he knew the proper thing to tell a kid. So instantly inside myself, I'm thinking, wow, I'm going to fly like an eagle. So he picked me up, but yet his arms never touched me. But his arms went under me, and I lifted, and I looked over, and when I looked over, there was an eagle, but it was like a one-dimensional cardboard cutout. It was really strange. And he lifted me, and he laid me, and I remembered looking at it and thinking, wow, I'm going to fly, So he took me and laid me down on this eagle, and the next thing I knew, I'm in a valley. This valley had the most beautiful mountains in the background, the most beautiful sky I'd ever seen. I'd never seen blues of the sky the way that I seen them that day. The mountains, the grass, the flowers were, I can't explain how beautiful the flowers were. There was every color imaginable. And they were not just vibrant. Unpolluted is probably the best word to use. This place was perfect, magnificent, had so much color. It wasn't gaudy. It was perfect. And I was in that field for quite some time, just looking around in amazement. And then the next thing I know, and I remember this, there was a section of time that seemed like it was quite a while. And it's been took from my memory, I guess. And I woke up, and when I woke up, my dad was packing me in the house, and I was coming to. And the doctor had told my mother, he said, when you go home, he is going to sleep, and he's going to be wore out, And he may sleep, off and on for 2 days without any energy. Now, keep in mind, my mother had also asked, this was during the time of the Vietnam War, as the Vietnam War was starting to end. And there was rumors going around that a lot of the blood was tainted during that time. So she had a big concern about me having a blood transfusion. She had asked the doctor, did you all have to give him any blood? And that was one of her concerns. And he said, no, ma'am. As crazy as this sounds, she said, it was his exact words. He said, as crazy as this sounds, he has plenty of blood in his body. And I have to tell you something else, too. I got to back this up a little bit. I should have told you. When I was having my arms operated on, I'd told my mother what I encountered, and she shook her head no. She said, no, honey, that's not what happened. And I said, well, who operated on me? And she had stated, she said, no, these are her exact words, don't hold it against me. She had stated that it was a little fat, bald-headed man had did my operation. He wore glasses. And there was a couple of them in there working on me. They were having to pull the glass out of my arms. They were sewing me up. They were doing everything they did. Mom said I looked like a rag doll on that table. She said I was like a wet dish towel. She said I had no movement, no nothing. I was staring straight up at the sky. So at this time, she thought I was dead. And she had stated that she started praying for the first time in a long time, because at my house, God was never mentioned. We grew up in a normal, I guess what you call normal at the time, 1970s type family. My dad worked a lot. He did whatever he could to bring in money. My mom was a stay-at-home mom. And God was never mentioned, ever. So I didn't have no background of knowing him. And she said she stated that she prayed. And she was looking through the double doors while they were doing surgery. And she said they had me on a little, it wasn't a table. She said it was one of those things you push around that they put all their tools and instruments on to operate on you, is what they had me on. And she said she looked through the doors and she prayed for the first time in a long time. And she told God, she said, Lord, she said, if he dies, then get ready for one more, because I'm coming right behind him. She stated there was no way that she could have lived with that if I would have died. So miraculously, I live. I go back. I wake up on the couch. I'm waking up mid while my dad's taking me to the couch. And as he lays me down, I wake up and I jump up and I start hollering over and over and over, I'm never going to die. I'm never going to die. I'm never going to die. Mom said I took off running again. I had all kinds of energy. It wasn't as the doctor had described to her about me being without energy. I felt like I had the most energy I'd ever had the whole time I was alive. And I wish I had that energy now. But later on, as time went on, she asked me, well, honey, what do you remember? And I would describe it to her. And she described back to me that is not what happened. So as time goes on, I didn't think nothing else about it. There are some things I can't speak about. I just have to keep them to myself. But when I come back, I was quite different. I'll just say that. As years went on, I started getting in a little bit of trouble at school, and school wasn't agreeing with me. Busing had started. It was crazy. All kinds of crazy stuff was going on at school. And I wasn't, I don't know, I didn't understand and couldn't grasp everything that was going on at the time around me. Because I wasn't raised in that type of home. I was raised in a home where everybody loved everybody. Everybody's the same. They put me in a private school. And at that time, I started learning about God, and I started learning about this man that was described as everything that I had met that day in the hospital. All the feelings that I had from the energy that come from this gentleman was what was being described in the book of John, and everywhere else. And I found out, and he never stated his name to me, never told me who his name was. He just had so much love and compassion and kindness and the trust. The trust was the key thing. Back in the 70s, we were taught not to trust anyone. And that's how our parents just pumped it into us, programmed us to not trust anyone. This guy, if he would have given me the option to go with him that day, I would have went. There is no way I would have come back here, which leads into a whole different ball game. I had a lot of problems being here when I came back because I did not want to be here. Not where I went was, peace is an understatement. I'll just say that. Peace, love, it just emits. It's a place you don't want to miss, I'll tell you that. And Yeshua, Jesus, he's real. And I guess what I'm trying to get across today is if you've had a loved one that has passed, don't say they're dead. They're not. If they passed this life and they were in Yeshua, if they were in Jesus and they really believed in Jesus and really loved and the whole 9 yards, you're going to see that person again. You really, truly are. I can promise you that. And this life is but a breath and it's over. And we really don't start living until we get there. Then we look back and we realize we were dead here. I know it sounds crazy, but that's the truth. And that's what it is. And once I got to learning Scripture, I seen who I met that day. Now, I can't say for certain whether it was an angel or whether it was Yeshua, but I'm pretty sure it was Yeshua. Just by what I felt and what I witnessed and the way his energy took me over, and it was like my energy was there. I still had free will, but yet his energy was so overpowering. And I lived a normal, heathenistic life for quite some time before I came back to the Lord. And I did have a lot of issues staying in this world. And like I said, I have never shared this with hardly anyone. I've shared it with a handful of people. Didn't share it with my dad until last year. So, peace be unto you, and peace be unto your home. And I don't know who needs to hear this today, but somebody out there does. If you've had a loved one that's passed, they're in a much better place. And if you gave them the opportunity, if they had the opportunity to choose to come back or stay where they were, they would do like me. At the time when I was there, I did think about my mom and dad for a split second. And it was almost like I looked over my shoulder, but yet I didn't look over my shoulder. I knew I was in a different place. And I'll just say, when I did kind of look over my shoulder, I was at total peace because I knew in a blink of an eye, within 5 minutes, they were going to be there. It's something you have to experience to appreciate. And I wish everybody had the opportunity, but don't do it yourself. But I wish everybody had the opportunity to experience what I experienced. It would change everything of how you look in life. You would never look at life the same. And you would understand the trust and the love. And you would come back and you would understand that love is the most important thing. Forgiveness is the most important thing. And to put him above all things, including ourselves. And allow that Spirit to lead us in this life. And life becomes quite different. Anyway, I wish all of you all peace today. Take care and have a wonderful day. And like I said, find peace within your heart. And we've all lost loved ones. But please know you haven't lost them. You haven't lost them at all. They're in a way better place, and you will find out one day yourself. So hang in there. Enjoy this life. The good news is he came to give you life, gave you peace, gave you joy, and gave you life in abundance. So remember that. Take care.